All right, on this episode of Locked On Avalanche, Cale Makar comes oh so close to winning an extra $1,000,000 for his wallet. And NHL players back at the Olympics. Cannot wait for that. We'll talk about that and talk about the Avalanche back in action against the New York Rangers. All that and more on a new episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And make sure you're following us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And why not subscribe to our subtext? Link to that is in the show notes below, because when you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. Tell us everything that's on your mind, Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. All right, sir. We'll get to the Rangers a little bit later. Like I said in the opening, NHL players back in the Olympics and another Four Nations face-off tournament. That's next year, so we'll talk about that. We'll start with the skills competition, and only the skills competition. Why? Because we're recording this right before the actual game, which we don't really care about all that much. So we figure we get this in now while the skills is a little bit more fresh on our minds. And I think that it's more enjoyable than the actual game. And the game hasn't even been played yet. But what was your overall take on the skills competition? New format this year.
Yeah, and a new format and the last format we will ever see of the skills competition. So that's awesome. I'm glad that they kept talking about how this was the brainchild of Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. And
did they give Matthews credit for it? Because I mean, it was McDavid. McDavid, you just heard him and it's true. Like, they did talk to him about, how can we make this better? And if you listen to the Nathan MacKinnon interview on 32 Thoughts, which was last week, Elliot Friedman asked him, he asked Nathan MacKinnon, we know that they went to Connor McDavid about some changes. Did they go to you on any? And he was like, they don't come to me for anything. So they are so in bed with Connor McDavid and just want to please him. And I get it. But yeah, it's, I mean, you have superstars in this league. Go to more than McDavid. But yeah.
And you mentioned that we didn't really care about the All-Star game. Honestly, the skills competition, I think, is the most competition you'll see the entire weekend. Like, seeing those guys go at it against each other, because it's proving best on best. Like, I can do the best in this competition. Like, it's with athletes, they could compete in horseshoes, and it's interesting. It's fun just watching them have that friendly competition. Like, the All-Star game is just the spectacle of we're all together, we're having this moment. It's more of a celebration than an actual game. The skills competition, there was to compete. And it was nice seeing traditional, like we did talk about how great the Vegas and the Florida extra events were, but it was just to keep it interesting. But the traditional get down and compete was fun. And who would have thought the Avalanche member walking away with money would be Georgiev?
Right. Yeah, because goalies didn't come into the fray until the 7th round or something like that, and it's just basically a shootout for, what was it, 60 seconds or something like that. And whoever had the most saves, or however they want to do it, got $100,000. That guy was Alexander Georgiev, and who he was going up against, Connor McDavid. So, and that they were the last pairing, because the players are picking who they want to go up against. And, Georgiev is just, nobody's picking him. And then he falls to Connor McDavid, and he had some nice poke checks there by Georgia. So he wins you're right, man. The only guy Cale was close, but the guy who did come away with money, Alexander Georgiev. How about that?
Yeah. If you would have told me Nathan MacKinnon would crumble, Cale Makar would look like otherworldly, and Georgiev would be walking away with money from All-Star weekend, I would laugh and say you're crazy, but that's the results that we got. Go
Yeah.
Avs, go.
So for the individual events, the first one right off the bat was a speed competition. McDavid wins that one. This is the second one that Cale's been a part of. He biffed last year. This year he finished 4 out of 5. So this is tougher to do. It doesn't simulate a game, and sometimes that's difficult. And this is 2 years in a row where he hasn't really represented well in the speed department. So whatever, he finishes second there. But then the next event was the one-timer event, which Nathan MacKinnon did win. They adjusted a score. Who had him beat? Was it
I
Pedersen
think it
who
was
had him beat?
Was it Pasta that
Was it
they
Pasternak?
adjusted?
It might have been. Yeah, I can't remember now. But somebody they adjusted and that gave MacKinnon the win. So he had 5 points, but I think he only ended up with 7 total. So that was his best event by far. And then you get to the passing challenge, which is a little bit of controversy because Makar did great in the passing competition. And then Pedersen comes in and he's doing well. And the clock clearly gets to 0 and he fires his final puck, which hits the 3 target, which gets him 3 points, which puts him over Makar. Now, I'm not making a big deal about this, but and I said it on Twitter. It's like, normally I wouldn't make a big deal about it, but when there's that much money on the line, you either have to honor the clock or not honor the clock. And for that, they didn't. But I will say, I don't remember another time where, because I think there were moments throughout this where the clock was hitting 0 in other events, and it didn't really seem like they were taking those points away from guys.
Well, they did have Nikita Kucherov retake his I think it was the accuracy because the clock didn't go off at all. And he took his first 2 shot and they stopped and flagged and then they reset and they set it back up. And then if you remember in the fastest skater, the clock never stopped.
The very first guy to go, it didn't stop.
I think it was Pedersen on the first one. It just never stopped. It kept going and going and going. And they had to go back and look what that time actually tallied.
It was Nylander, actually. It was
you're right.
Nylander.
You're right.
Yeah. But those are just like mistakes. Like those are whatever. You can fix those because when he crossed the line, you can just go back and look at the video and give it a time to him. You can go back and look at the video. Pedersen's got the puck on a stick for like a solid, it seems like 3 seconds before he takes that final shot and they fire it. If ahead of the whole event, they told players like, look, we're going to have time here, but we're not going to be super strict about it. Just, you got to finish the event, then fine. We don't know that. But in the end, did it play a role? It didn't. But, when there's money on the line, honor the clock.
I do think the rules were also made up kind of on the fly as well, especially in that passing challenge. I think they had to re-explain the rules of everything and how it went. I'm pretty sure it'd probably be that last shot was untimed if it's on your stick or something. And the goalie selection, I think it was announced halfway through by Weeksy about you can't choose your own teammate. As
Did
a
he
goalie.
say that?
Yes.
Yeah. Which I get. I get that.
I do get that, but it was never mentioned anywhere in the broadcast. And then it had to be weeks to point it out. And you're like, oh, okay, now that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
and with the
I think the rules were just kind of foggy.
With the passing challenge, Nathan MacKinnon went first. And you could tell that was a disadvantage for him because he's asking, there's refs out there and there's guys kind of explaining what to do. He was out there like, okay, pretty much saying like, where do I go here? And he kind of took his time. He ran out of time.
Yeah.
By a lot. It wasn't like he had the last shot like Pedersen did and they just gave it to him. Like he just ran out of time. But I think he was just trying to make sure he didn't overskate something or screw something up. And then he didn't get to watch how it's done and then go out there and maybe do a little bit better than, like Cale Makar. He was somewhere in the middle and you saw the difference. So anyway, but what Cale Makar did win, a little bit of a surprise here for me. Hardest shot. I didn't think anything was going to stop Pedersen from taking the hardest shot. And you get 2 shots and he didn't even get 1 shot. This is Pedersen over 100 miles an hour. There was only 3 shots that went over 100 miles an hour. 2 of them were from Cale Makar. He had 102 point whatever and 101 point whatever. And I think JT Miller was the other one who had I think he had 100, just under Cale's 102 point something. But Cale Makar,
0.56.
yeah, Cale Makar, hardest shot in the league. Are you kidding me? I mean, I know he's got one, but that one was a little bit of a surprise, pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and hey, it's one of those things that it's an extra wrinkle that Cale never has to use, but if he has to, we know he at least can shoot 102 miles an hour, 0.56.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, and then it just goes from there. And then, there's other events. Obviously, you have the accuracy, which I absolutely love watching Connor McDavid do the accuracy challenge. It's just incredible to watch. And then it goes down to 6 guys, or is it? No, it's 8 guys. It's 8 guys, and then they have the goalie challenge, and then the last one is an obstacle course. And Makar was in first place. It was going to be a long shot because McDavid needed to finish third, because that event was like 10 points for first, 8 points for second, and with Makar was at 23 points with the lead. McDavid was at 15 before he even went. So he needed to finish third or worse, and he finished first by a long shot. It was going to be tough to take it from him, but Makar was right there at the end. But overall, I liked it. I thought it was entertaining, despite Nikita Kucherov just phoning it in.
Yeah.
I wonder what the league is going to say to him. If they're like, dude, like this is fan service. Go out there and try. Can you at least try?
They're not going to say anything because this is it. We're done. We don't ever have to complain or talk about this ever again. We don't have to worry about all-star games or skill competition next year. We're moving on.
Well, at least for a year. For a year. This is not permanent. This is not permanent. But why is that? Why are we saying that? If you didn't pay attention to the Gary Bettman press conference that was before the skills competition, we'll bring it up. We'll talk about that. Why don't we do that next, Kyle? All right. Yeah. Some big news in the NHL world. We'll do that after this. All right. Let's hear from FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Happy Super Bowl season to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seats on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, or even 2 or 3, and you can place bets on who will win Super Bowl 58, but also you can bet on which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. Prop bet heaven over at FanDuel, and new customers join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. Excuse me. Yeah. So overall, I'm satisfied with that. With the skills competition, I thought it was entertaining right up until the end. Even though you knew Connor McDavid was going to pretty much, he was in control of this, and if he just didn't screw up, he was going to take it, which he did. But like Kyle alluded to in the first segment, we are not having an all-star game next year, to which I immediately applaud. I stood up and applauded when I heard that news. And the reason for that is because we are going to have a couple of new events for not new, but they're going back to the Olympics. That's in 2026. So that's 2 years from now, but we'll get to that in a second. The first one that was announced was a 4 nations face-off tournament. That's next year. So that's why we will have no all-star weekend or all-star festivities. And this is like a round robin thing. Let me get the thing. Let's see. We have United States, Canada, Sweden, and Finland are taking part in this. And on the article that I have up for NHL.com, they said they didn't announce the cities, but I saw somewhere else that did. I saw somewhere else that said it's Toronto and Boston. I don't know if that's 100% true right now, but if it is, okay, cool. We'll start with that one. What's your take?
I think it's wonderful, but as a hockey historian, purist, OG, Why can't we go back to World Cup of Hockey? Why do we have to go to
Yeah,
this?
they kept throwing that around. If I don't know, man, like for some reason, it just they kept talking about it, like the World Cup of Hockey, and when they were talking about it, it just never felt like it was something that they genuinely wanted to do for whatever
Yeah.
reason. And then they come up with this. I'm okay with it. I know you'd probably want a little bit, maybe a few other countries involved in this, but you have to do something. You know what I mean? And if it's not the World Cup of Hockey, then at least you have something. Because look at what baseball does with their World Classic. You have sports that are going back to this stuff or doing this stuff, and the NHL has just been stagnant on. They used to do
Yeah.
it, and they're coming back around to it, at least for this. I think this is great. I think this is a good starting point, and I wonder if if this is like the college football playoff where we're starting with 4 teams, and maybe we expand it as the years go on. I don't know.
And I honestly, again, the 4 nations, that's great. That's wonderful. It's a good exposure for the game. But I am telling you, Bettman, I know you're a fan of the show. Thank you for joining us and being an everydayer. But I implore you, go back to the World Cup of Hockey and make it take the game of hockey international and allow for countries to play suffer relegation and play amongst theirself and work their way up to that World Cup of Hockey level. And you could showcase so many other talents. Like
Mhm.
you don't have to just restrict it to NHL. You can incorporate other aspects of it, but you could do so much more with that format. I love the 4 nations thing. Don't get me wrong. This is a
Mhm.
great starting point, but do not put all your eggs in this basket and say this is the be all end all. They could do so
Well,
much more with the game if they open it up to that World Cup format.
which he did allude to that. He did say, this we're doing this in 2025. Olympics are in 2026. And then I think he said the in between, 2 years after that, they're planning on doing the World Cup again. So, when you're talking about doing the World Cup, like, why not just do it right now?
Yep.
I don't know why you're just not doing it right now, but he mentioned something like this is just like setting the table. I guess just to get back into the flow of it. I mean, players are ready to go. Players are ready to do this. They're
They
ready
have
to
been.
jump back in. Yeah. So
They
why you're going to hold off the World Cup for more years and it's already been held up, I don't know. But at least he threw out there the plan is to get back there. And like I said before, like it just felt to me like they were not 100% committed to it right now for whatever reason. But he
you
didn't he
mean
didn't shut it out. He did say that it would happen.
you mean like the last time we had the CBA when NHL players were told, "Yeah, you guys are playing in the Olympics, get ready." And then, "Oh, by the way, no you're not." And that was pulled right out
Yeah.
from
You mean talking about like the COVID stuff?
them. Mhm.
Yeah, I don't really put that so honestly, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was the players who made the decision to not go after COVID came out. I don't think it was fully on Bettman. I think players were saying like, no, this is a little bit too dangerous. We're not going to go.
I
And
believe that I
it was in conjunction with the players union in the NHL.
yeah, I feel like it came from a higher up, but
I'm sure
I
it did. Yeah.
I just don't like the double speak. I just want international hockey to be back in good graces, and I want to see NHLers participate in international hockey.
So, and we're getting it with the Olympics. I have been waiting for that since they took it away. Since they
Yep.
took it away. How long ago was that now? I don't remember now. But they're
17?
well, no, Olympics are usually in even years. So it'd have to be, I think it was
16,
16.
17?
I think it's 16 was the last time they did it. It could be even before that. I don't know. But the fact is there is a young audience that has never seen that. Has never seen Olympic hockey with NHL players in it. Or if they were alive, they were very young and they made it appreciate it when they were, single digit people.
My Von Dooms, both of my
There you go.
children do not
Right.
remember a day of NHL players in the Olympics.
There is an aura around hockey nationwide when Olympic hockey is being played with NHL players. It's one of those things that just grabs the country. It is the sport. Like when you talk about a Winter Olympics and there's one sport that people go to, like that is what they look forward to. There's just something different about Olympic hockey that it just grabs the nation and just everybody's focus is on that. So for the sport, I'm that's what I'm looking for, to get people back in, like the people that are the casual fans, they go watch it. They watch it. And I think with these players who have not been able to go and are just so talented, and you know, the casual fan who doesn't really watch them a lot watches them in the Olympics. I think that there is some carryover to when the season picks back up again, where people start watching it, you know, because they watched it during the Olympics and like, wow, like, okay, I got you, hockey, and maybe they finish off the season. So I think it's a huge move for progressing the NHL as is right now, because it's big, it's huge, and the fact that it's finally going to be back is immense. I can't understate it.
Yeah, and especially like growing up where I did, I always had to explain the sport of hockey, why it's important. And everybody's first, if they're not affiliated with the game of hockey, like it's like a football fan, baseball fan, everyone's first recollection of the sport of hockey is, do you believe in miracles? Yes. And then
Sure.
when you have to explain, oh yeah, that's right, but NHL players don't play at the Olympics anymore. And everybody's reaction is like, oh, well, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You take off that mystique, and it feels like the league is cheaper now than it was at the time. And it's hard, it's a hard sell, but now we talk about like this all-star game skills competition was a good way to grow the game. The Olympics is the best way to grow the game, not just on your televisions, but internationally.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think you'll see it. I think you'll see that so many people just turning to it and be like, wow, this is a lot of fun to watch. Is this really what hockey's like? Yeah. Yeah. Keep watching it. Keep watching it.
There's a
Because
whole
it's
league.
yeah.
Come on.
So really, really, really looking forward to both of these things. I think this Four Nations thing is just going to be fun. I think it's going to be the appetizer is the word that Bettman used. And I think that's the right word for it. But I think it's going to have it's just a little bit of a, you know, wet your whistle before the big Olympics come the following year. So, and we don't have to watch an all-star game. Come on now. It's going to be so much better than an all-star game. Are you kidding me? There's no way it's going to be worse than an all-star game. This is going to be great. So
mark this moment right here.
Oh, love it. All right. But as far as the Avalanche, they will be back in action, and that's Monday night against New York Rangers. Let's talk a little bit about that, what we expect from this game and the Avs for the rest of the season. We'll do that next. All right. If you watched our episode on the February schedule, you know that the Avalanche are hitting the road to start the second half of the season right after the All-Star break, and game one in New York against the New York Rangers. This should be a pretty entertaining one. Two really good teams. Rangers are fighting it a little bit right now. I do watch a lot of Rangers games because that is my East Coast team, admittedly. They are a little bit up and down. Their great start is keeping them where they are in the standings. They're still number one in the standings. They're still a very good team. But I think that break for them came at a great time, just to relax, reset. Let's, you know, figure some things out here. What's going wrong as of late? I think they had like a 4 or 5 game losing streak not that long ago. It's been hit or miss for them. So you never know what you're going to get the first game back after an extended break. So I'm a little bit interested to see how both of these teams start this game. I think you wear that rust off pretty quickly, but overall, I think this should be a pretty entertaining game.
No, this should be a tilt. This is going to be two Titans going against each other. The Rangers need to correct some things. They dropped a game in overtime to the San Jose Sharks on the 23rd.
Yeah.
So this is like everything you were talking about the Rangers is similar with the Avs. Like if they didn't have that really bad stretch, they would be doing a lot better. And this is your way. There's no other breaks. There is no other let's get to this point. No, the next point is the playoffs. It's playoffs or bust from here on out. So if you start off with a bad, embarrassing loss or it takes forever to get going, guess what? It doesn't get easier for the Avalanche, who play the Devils the next day. Another team trying to correct things. So the Avalanche need to get out and get a 60-minute performance, and the Rangers are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're still, like I said, at the top of the same, but now Carolina's right on their heels. Carolina's only 2 points back from them. The Rangers 30, 16-3 overall, but they had a bad loss to the Sharks. They lost to the Kings, who can't beat anybody right now.
Yeah,
so they've had a couple of bad losses. I know that's the nature of the beast when it comes to the NHL, but a team like that's at the top of the division should be winning games like that. Like how we were saying with the Avalanche are winning those winnable games as of late. The Rangers we're a little bit in flux.
And the Rangers are 15-7 at home. That's respectable. But you also have MacKinnon versus Panarin. That's what you want to see. And you got Shesterkin versus Georgiev. That's also what you want to see.
Yeah. I think Georgiev's, it's one of those things where, you have a guy who's always up to play his former team. And I think Georgiev absolutely gets up with those. I'm not saying there was bad blood when he left or was traded. But when Lundqvist left, it was who's going to take this spot.
Yeah.
And it was back and forth between Georgiev and Shesterkin, not really on the ice, but it was who was going to be the guy. Shesterkin took it and ran with it. And I think Georgiev understands why, he took that spot. It's going to be impossible for me to unseat him. So, they traded him, and that's probably what he wanted so he can go play. But I kind of feel like they didn't give him a full shot at it. They gave him a little bit. But it seemed like I think they gave Shesterkin much more of an opportunity to play himself into that role, which he did. So I think there's a little bit of angst from Georgiev towards the Rangers. So yeah, every time he plays them, he's gonna wanna stick it to them as best as he can. So I'm expecting a good game, or I'm wanting a good game out of everybody, but especially him. And he will give that to you every time he plays the Rangers. I'm pretty confident of that.
And I know he's going to stay between the pipes because he's got an extra $100,000 in his pocket.
Hey,
so
man.
He can't be floating everywhere.
Rangers, yeah, they can score. Obviously, you got Panarin. He's got 66 points on the season. Trocheck's got 46. So does Zibanejad, has 46. Kreider's got 45. Adam Fox is 37. So they're a pretty deep team. So kind of two teams that are, I want to say, evenly matched because you have scorers, you have defenders. Usually, I won't say usually, but is Georgiev coming around? He started to look good before the break. So you have two good goalies on each side.
And
this is gonna be a fight. I'm looking forward to this, which again, I will be there watching it. So yeah.
And then you also have to think about the game inside the game and outside the game. The Avalanche did not participate with the Lindholm trade. They did not participate with the Monahan trade.
We don't know about the Monahan trade though. Like they could, all they wanted was 2 draft picks. I think the Avalanche were probably in on that. Just saying, like, no, we're not going to give you it first.
You didn't see the Avalanche on the receiving end of either trade. So those are done. But the Avalanche are going into New York. They could walk out. They can scout. They can look. They can shop.
I'll tell you what, man. I would not be mad if the Colorado Avalanche went into New York without Capo Caco, but left with Capo Caco. I would not be mad about that at all. And just say, hey, kid, you want to come with us and get a different shot with a team that may suit your needs a little bit better? Why not come with us? We're hitting the road. Join us for the road trip. Would not be against that at all.
Why do you think the captain of Locked On Avalanche is going to that game?
Why?
Because you're going to go make that deal.
To go get Capo Caco?
Yeah, you're going to be down there facilitating this deal.
I think so. I would love it. I would love it. I think he'd be he'd be a good piece. I mean, he's not the piece,
No.
but I think he would be a good piece of the puzzle.
No, that's your prototypical Avalanche player. Like if you
I
put
like
them
him.
through the machine like that, that's what the Avalanche need.
I like him. We'll see. Again, he is on the block. He is on the market. They have said that they are listening. So are the Avalanche calling? I don't know, but obviously moves are happening. Are the Avalanche got to step up and be the next team that makes a move? Or if they don't, there's going to be slim pickings come time the trade deadline comes around. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. We won't have a show on Tuesday. I'll be traveling, so we'll be back on Wednesday to discuss this Rangers game and the Devils game at that point. So
yeah, you just don't want to hear me talk about the Devils. That's fine. I get it.
That's it. The Devils and Zegras. I just don't want to hear it anymore from the Von Doom household. All right. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I'm Chris Maselli. This is Locked On Avalanche podcast. Thanks everybody for listening, watching, wherever you are. We'll see you guys later.